transformation. Having exited the industrial age and entered the next age, we're seeing the world of business continuing to accelerate. As consumers, we expect our phones and apps to be up 24/7. We expect real-time access to services and near immediate delivery of products. The customers of our businesses increasingly expect the same. In an always-on world, a high reliability of business services is table stakes to stay relevant and competitive. This means going beyond service availability and looking at the end-to-end processes and systems which enable our customers' transactions. Today, you're going to hear from Gav's CTO, Chaganty, as he dives into the differences and dependencies of service availability and service reliability. But first, let's go over some logistics. If you would like to ask a question, please use the chat window provided in the Click Webinar control bar. You should see that to the right. You can type your questions into the chat window at any time, and we will address as many questions as possible after the presentation. Every month, those who participate fully in the webinar are put in a drawing for a prize. Our winner from the last webinar is Fernando Jacinto. Congratulations, Fernando. We will continue to select a winner for our webinars based on your participation and inputs. So please participate in all the polls and the survey at the end to make it into the drawing. As usual, the winner will be announced at the next webinar. Once again, I'm Kerrie Hoffman, Strategic Advisor for Gavs Technologies and your host for this webinar. I am passionate about business transformation and getting as many companies as possible on their journey to the next stage. I'm a #1 best-selling business author and CEO of Hoffman Digital, an ecosystem of companies igniting the human experience at work. This includes strategic advisor at Gavs and several modern technology companies, co-founder and partner at Get Digital Velocity, and digital advisor and certified business coach at Focal Point Business Coaching. I have 32 years of experience in 3 corporations, including CIO roles at Johnson Controls and Johnson & Johnson, as well as sales roles and operation roles at Aurora Healthcare. It is my pleasure to welcome our speaker for today, Chaganty. is CTO for Gavs Technologies. Shree's prior role was CTO and co-founder of AppInsure, a Silicon Valley-based startup, which is now part of Gavs. Shree has worked in the area of data communications and internet technologies for the past 35 years and introduced more than a dozen products into the US, Japanese, and European markets. Shree was previously involved in additional startups. He was CEO and founder of CES and co-founder and chief technical officer of Holland Tech Corporation. Prior to the startup, Shree was director of software at the Data Communication Systems division of NEC America, and has additional corporate experience with GTE and Burroughs. Shree holds 5 patents in the area of high availability and clustering, as well as an MS in computer engineering from Drexel University. Before handing it over to Shree, we have a special treat tonight. I'd like to introduce Srini, Tech Advisor for Gavs, and guest speaker to kick us off. Over to you, Srini.
Hi, Kerrie. Thanks for the introduction and for setting the context. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, all the viewers. So before Sri goes into deep of this particular new concept, I would like to throw some light on why it is important in today's context. See, all along ITSM, ITIL, IT monitoring, these have been existing over the last 20, 30 years. Okay, so several tools have been, matured enough to do the IT monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, and all those things. But today's the new age of business have emerged such that a lot of newer components have been introduced into the scope of IT and business application. For example, things like Internet of Things, where the most of the data in the previous era is generated by humans, rather now the data is generated by machines. And also the technologies like blockchain, whereby the data is not only put in one server or the one node, it is just gets replicated across the world to various nodes. So there are like under the newer application architectures like microservices, containers. So all these makes that today's IT environment much more complex than what they were, yeah, at least 5 years or 3 4 years back. That is number one. The second thing is that today there is a new set of businesses emerge purely based upon technology. If you take the organizations like Uber, whereby the organization's entire growth or the entire positioning is purely on building the IT services. So the business is fully dependent on IT service. So it is no longer just the availability of the systems. For example, like 10 years back, when we are running a mainframe or a Unix server, we may be satisfied with whether that that the disks are working fine, the memory is fine, and the CPU is getting pinged and responded, the server is responding. But with the complication of architectures, second thing is that with the new business model emerging out of these new architectures, like the blockchain based system, IoT based systems, it is even more important that we need to shift beyond IT service availability towards the service reliability. That's what Sri is going to talk to you in detail, and he will start now. So over to you, Sri.
Thank you, Srini. Are you guys able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, Sri.
Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you. Greetings to everyone who is actually attending the webinar today, and thank you for taking the time to attend the webinar. And if we can move ahead to the next slide, I would like to kind of give you a quick introduction to our webinar today, as well as a little bit about GAVS. GAVS Technologies has been a leading provider of digital transformation solutions, predominantly focusing on machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we have Fortune 5000 customers that have been benefiting from the solutions and the services that we have been offering. And part of that, as a business unit focusing purely on the AI solutions, Ziff.ai has been launched, and we are actually providing solutions through that business unit. So about this webinar, a little introduction. This is not a sales pitch. We have in 2019, and we will in 2020 continue to have informational webinar series, more on sharing our experiences and soliciting your experiences and thoughts as to how this AI ops, IT ops, employing artificial intelligence or machine learning is evolving. So this is going to be a very interactive webinar, as had been our previous webinars. There will be 4 polls, and there will be a survey at the end of the webinar, and would definitely hope that all of you will partake in those surveys and in those polls, because your input is very much appreciated for us to shape our thoughts in terms of what the market is needing and what solutions we have to create moving forward. With that little introduction, let me jump in with the first axiom or first fact that is happening. Business services are becoming very end user specific. So user of a service is now driving the evolution of the services, whether that user is an internal user or an external user or an external customer, but the end user's experience of going through a business process is become the paramount. And as a result, the business services have to cater to the needs of the end users and their experience. because the end users have become sophisticated. The technologies like mobile technologies and smartphones have enabled all of us to demand a service instantaneously. And because of that demand for providing an instantaneous service, a lot of high productivity activities are happening within organization. That is, for example, the services have to be launched have to be launched based on how the end users are experiencing a business service. What extensions are they looking at it, or what other services could be incorporated in it? So as a result of that, the high demand for creating uh, almost in an agile, continuous integration, continuous development format has taken over the business services development within organizations. Very demand for very high productivity. And at the same time, the transparency, the security concerns, and empowering the end user to experience the transparency and security has also been a requirement. And all this productivity that is happening within the organization is actually being for delivering better, faster business services, is also being influenced by the requirements of transparency and the empowerment that the end user needs to have for utilizing these business services. So all of this has ushered in what we call digitization or digital transformation, where organizations are looking at their existing business processes and they're looking at what should be optimized, what should be enhanced, and how new business processes have to be introduced for service reliability. So these days, it's no longer necessary for you to see the 4 bars on your mobile phone to be all lit. It is now coming to a point: how long is the quality of my call? Is it actually connecting in time? Is the quality of the call consistent throughout the call? These are the evolving reliability demands from an end user's perspective, which are making business services more and more complex. You would be surprised that a business service today at minimum touches about 80 to 100 different technologies on an average. So these transactions have become complex. So as a result, whether it is a service being available from your mobile phone, from your laptop, from your smart device, your iPad or whatever, the number of technologies that are involved for an end-to-end business service completion are increasing and not just staying at 82 technologies. More and more technologies are coming in. What does this mean? It means that we're going to be having multiple points of failure. And when these and not only that, look at how we are handing over the business service and the execution of it from one party to another party. And if your business service is all available from your point, and if the mobile service is not good, then it is still going to reflect on your business service. So there are so many different players with whom we have to cooperate, coordinate for making these business services, which are getting more and more complex in terms of technologies, to be able to not just be available, but be reliable. So in order to accomplish that availability and reliability, what is changing in terms of technically in order to cope up with this increasing needs of business services? Let's look at how the technical landscape is evolving. The applications are being re-architected. For the flexibility of being able to launch and develop and launch new business services in a continuous integration model, microservices are being adopted. The applications are broken down. The monolithic applications in the past are being broken down into smaller pieces and services that could be launched with ease. And therefore, the containerization, the orchestration for the availability of these microservices constantly, so that I could, if some failure is there, I could orchestrate and move these containers somewhere else, is becoming more and more prevalent. For example, if you look at what we see as the AWS's Lambda, function as a service. I mean, if I could basically look at what if I were to just not develop, but some business functions that are required for my business services are available, can I use them right away from providers like AWS and Microsoft? So this is gaining traction, which basically means that it is going to introduce multiple new monitoring challenges for us to look at all those functions that are being utilized in business services that are being provided as a service by an external provider. An entirely new class of applications are evolving with the IoT around. Again, the Internet of Things will play a very important role in how the business services are being delivered and monitored. And these new set of applications are also becoming part of the business services, the set of applications that provide a business service to the end users. And the diversity in the technology stack. What are all the technologies that are available? Open source, predominantly driving it, and also provide and supported by industry giants like Google. These new stack of technologies that are and new languages, new architectures that are being provided and available to the developers so that they could develop these business services in an agile format. That stack is becoming more and more diverse and more complex. And one of the important points that if you want to take away from this webinar is that this point I'm making right now, which is that performance is now being defined by 4 golden signals. What is the response time of your service? What is the throughput of the service? What is the error rate? And what is the contention in that this service is having with other services? These are the 4 major golden signals by which any of the services are being provided by the organizations are going to be measured, are being measured, and will be the benchmarks for measurements moving forward. The business services now, the quality of it is being measured by mean time to resolve. So your services, it is not mean time to identification, mean time to repair, it is not repair, resolve. If a service is not performing, how soon can I resolve that particular issue? Either by finding a workaround so that the end user will not see the impact. So this demand for this MTTR being in nanoseconds so that resolution is going to happen in nanoseconds is going to be driving how a service quality is going to be determined. And all of this, the infrastructure that supports the compute network and storage, multiple layers of virtualization, multiple technologies of abstraction are coming into picture, making it even more complex as to how these business services have to be orchestrated and monitored to make sure that they're not only available, but reliable as well. So at this point of time, I think we want to go ahead with our first poll, launch our first poll to get your feedback on what you see in your organizations, the changes that are happening. So there will be 1 minute for the poll, and please participate in the poll and share your experiences and observations with us, please. So at the top of the minute, the poll will be closed, and I should be able to start my next slide on. Well, before we go to the next slide, are we going to be sharing the results of the poll with our attendees? Anita? Oh, there you are. Well, I think what we see here is that about 20% are seeing the migration to cloud. All of the above, where I see 40%, that's basically everything in that poll is what we are seeing. And I think you're reinforcing what our observations are. It's not just one initiative that is driving. It is the collective initiatives of migrating to the cloud while the applications are being re-architected with the emphasis on the performance, because at the end of the day, the service being available that we are providing with these applications is what the paramount importance is to the organizations. And that's the reason why many of you are seeing, so are we, in terms of what is happening out in the market today. Now, if you look at what this digitization and what, from a pictorial point of view, what I was talking about in the earlier slide, the monolithic applications of the past are migrating to serverless architectures. When the serverless architectures, we have the leading players like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google providing us with tremendous amount of technology, tools to be able to construct these services and test them and launch them in a very fastidious manner. And then the event-driven architectures, where function as a service is available to me, and I could react to these events and basically create architectures where, with how the end users are interacting with the business services, the way I could change the nature of the business service purely through interaction of the end users, is another evolving trend. So all of this digitization, the innovation, the diversity I was talking about, the complexity I was talking about, all towards the speed, so that we could actually create these business services that we are talking about at the speed of light, because every end user wants a instantaneous, demanding for an instantaneous service availability and reliability. So the traditional applications, as they're migrating, the application architectures that were previously, core Java and .NET applications, are now migrating. They're using sophisticated messaging buses like Kafka, ActiveMQ, depending upon what Azure or Apache Storm and what AWS Redshift. These are all basically examples of the technologies and tools that are available to us, and being able to host them and monitor them and see how these services are performing, whether it is AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, or AWS's App Mesh. All these things are available today for developers to create these applications. But as much as this is a promising and an encouraging thing from the point of view of developing the business services and launching them, same time, the ability to monitor and coordinate across the business service end to end, so that the service is not just available, because all these tools today will help me to make sure that my service is available. There isn't anything here that can stop me from making a service available, but there isn't anything here that makes me guarantee that my service is going to be reliable. And that is basically one of the biggest challenges that organizations face in terms of being able to provide business services with a reliability factor. So with that, we want to launch our second poll today. This is poll number 2 of the 4 polls. And in this poll here, we want to ask you as to what technologies are you seeing in your organization in terms of containerization or microservices, whether there is an adoption for platform as a service. Are you seeing Azure migration or AWS migration or Google migration? And none of the above is a trick question, because if you're seeing changes in your earlier poll, from the earlier poll, you're seeing these migrations. So one or the other of these should be happening within your organizations. So please do participate, and we'll close the poll after a minute. So after we close the poll, Anita is going to share the results with us as to what you have to share with us. Well, we got about 50% participating. I hope, and so containerization and microservices, Azure migration, very consistent with what we are observing in the marketplace. Azure and AWS migration predominantly has, because of the maturity of those technologies or that platforms being available, and of course when you're migrating to Azure and AWS, the PaaS adoption is going to be part of it. And of course there is a tremendous shift of the legacy applications moving towards the containerized and microservices model. Thank you for participating, and we'll move ahead. So, what are the insights that are required from an IT perspective for us as these technologies? I said the challenge is that I have plethora of solutions and technologies available to build my business services and launch them in a very fast manner. Now, if I were to look at what is there in terms of the insights that I can get from an IT operations for these business services that are being launched, whether they are based on a PaaS or an infrastructure as a service or function as a service kind of dependencies. When you look at it from a purely reactive model, if you were to look at the logs and perform the forensics of what might have happened, that's reactive. That reactiveness is moved into more of an application-centric performance monitoring right now. What is the application? Who is using it? Is it performing right? And events related and unrelated to that performance that could be analyzed from multiple metric store silos. So from multiple silos, being able to ingest the data and in real time look at the performance of an application is where the metric driven comes into picture. But if you're looking at these technology advances and what we need to do, we need to require a full end-to-end relationships and based monitoring of the services and the dependency of that service, because it is no longer just a bunch of applications that are developed within an organization. It is also services that on which my business service is dependent upon, that are being provided by the external service providers. So what, when, and why a performance can become abnormal across the stack requires an algorithmic, relationship driven platform that monitors not just anomalies, but monitors what the anomalies or the symptoms might actually be focusing on the root cause, because a symptom might not actually relate to root cause because of all these moving parts and all these dependencies that we have in a business service. So, but when you look at that reliability challenge they have today, the IT operations are today most of the times looking at the problem from a manual perspective, which is going to be error prone. And this is the reason why when we talk about the artificial intelligence and business service availability and reliability, where will that artificial intelligence and machine learning will come into picture? With the IT analytics, with all of these components and tons of data coming in, being able to manually analyze it is going to be not just error prone, but will also be time consuming. The second thing is, today we are reacting to the problems. We are reacting to find a resolution. That does not prevent problems from happening. This is another area where the artificial intelligence will come into picture, the machine learning will come into picture, because with machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, being able to sift through these tons of data that we're getting and creating the patterns and forming the patterns that will enable us, based on the pattern matching of something that might go wrong, will make this reactive problem resolution to a proactive problem avoidance. And because the business service owners today do not have a visibility, end-to-end visibility of all the components that make form, that is part of this particular business service delivery, having that visibility and having the visibility to monitor the performance and the incidents that might appear to be unrelated to my business service, having the visibility into that. So lack of visibility is not just what is going wrong, but what might be going wrong in the peripherals that might also affect my business service is the kind of visibility that we can get using machine learning. And when we talk about the capacity analysis from a business context point of view, it is not whether you can throw in more CPU memory or whatnot. It is the capacity of the entire delivery supply chain of all the components, through whether it is computing power, whether it is storage power, whether it is networking bandwidth, whether it is the ability to demand the service levels that you require from the service providers on which your business service is dependent upon. All of this capacity is what the capacity analysis requires. And this challenge that the IT operations have is one of the reasons why the business service availability and reliability is being blurred today. With that, we'll go to our third poll. In terms of what I've described of a reactive event-driven forensics, or being able to ingest and try to look at what might be happening with the performance of your services and applications, or algorithmic driven platform which is looking at the future evolution of your business services, where is your organization in this spectrum is what we would like to understand. So after 1 minute, Anita will close the poll and share the results with us. And please do participate and let us know where you think your organization is. And this will be the last but one. We have one more poll to go. And not surprising. The results are not surprising because majority of the organizations today are still struggling with the reactive mode of finding out what went wrong than focusing on what might go wrong. And that is where the AI ops come into picture, and that is where the need for artificial intelligence and machine learning has started popping up as a requirement, which has resulted in the market realizing and adjusting to that. If you look at market dynamics today, there are 5 types of vendors who want to bring AI into the IT operations space. The application performance vendors like AppDynamics and Dynatrace are focusing on making this as a feature, while AI ops and IT ops has come to a point where it can stand alone as a product category. APM vendors are interested in pushing it as a feature in their product. Event management vendors like MoogSoft and others, Big Panda, have taken their historical experience in event management and added the artificial intelligence and machine learning into their core product offerings and are trying very hard to make AI ops as a product category. The workload automation vendors like Turbonomics are also entering into this space, again making artificial intelligence and machine learning as part of a feature. And so are the monitoring tools and like SolarWinds and others, and so are the ITSM vendors like ServiceNow. Knowing and understanding that there is a need for advanced algorithms, fast learning algorithms, machine learning algorithms that are required to able to ingest the data from multiple sources and make sense out of it has been realized not only by the end users. As a result of being realized by the end users, all these vendors are providing extensions of what they have in order to provide that availability and reliability within their solution offerings. So there is a survival and domination kind of a dynamic that is happening in the market with these vendors, while the MOOCsofts of the world, the event management vendors of the world have made progress in terms of how they can show the results and what results can be applied in terms of applying this machine learning to the event management system. Vendors like ServiceNow are incorporating that so that they could actually provide automation. So they're looking ahead to see what kind of automation and remediation could be done. Now, the digital landlords, on the other hand, when you look at the Microsoft or Amazon or Google, the digital landlords are providing you, as I've shown you earlier on, a lot of technologies and solutions and tools so that they could get you more and more embedded into their solution. See, the whole concept of the cloud was, hey, the cloud is going to be something that I can move my applications on and I can migrate them from one place to another cloud to another cloud. That is more theoretical. That's an ambition. Today, depending upon which cloud you choose, which technologies are available that you're employing in terms of making your business services available to your end customers, more and more you're going to embed yourself into the choice, and being able to migrate across is going to become more and more less viable as we move forward. So as these digital landlords are grabbing this space and trying to embed the non-mobility into your business services, the digital marketplaces are evolving where multiple vendors with different solutions are grouping together to provide the third-party outside view of what is happening. The monitoring as it stands today will become free commodity, will be free in few years to come. And the points I'm making here is just to show you how much faster it is happening than what we think is reality. The open source, new startups, the investments that is going into new startups, all of this is all driven towards how soon and how well can the solutions offer to their customers the business service availability metrics and reliability guarantees. So with that, I think we'll go with our last poll of the webinar. And if you can kindly participate, we will go through the rest of the slides and open it for your questions very quickly. And we'll close it at the top of the minute. And this is, I request you to participate in it because I would like to see where you stand in terms of your definition of availability and reliability. So Anita will close it at the top of the hour and share the results with us. Thanks for participating. 23% and 42% on service reliability. I'm very heartened to see this response, because the whole premise of this webinar and the whole premise on which Ziff.ai and Gavs is building their solutions is on service reliability. And I'll share that as to how and why it is important in the next few slides. If you look at the current AI ops, state of AI ops, the current solutions in AI ops are focusing more on aligning with monitoring, ingesting tons of data, taking alerts from all over the place, and focusing more on reducing that raw alert volume and providing, if there is any automation, around resource-centric automation. All of this focuses on service availability. Is my service available? Do I need to throw more resources at it so that it is available? And how am I measuring my availability? Is it responding back? When I ping it, is it responding back? Is the service available for somebody to access? But the real needs of tomorrow are, is availability is going to be taken for granted. Your service has to be available. That's the league that you have to play in. When your business service is available, there is no question. And the example I always give is that when Google doesn't show up on your monitor, you don't suspect Google, you go check your access router, whether it is up or not. So that is the kind of availability guarantees that your business services have to provide. When it is available, the consistency of service performance is the need of tomorrow. The service-centric automation, which not just involves the resource-centric, but looks at what might be required for me, including the dependencies I have on the external service providers. How should I orchestrate and reformulate my service architecture from a delivery perspective so that the reliability and the consistency is maintained? Such kind of automation is going to be required. The continuous service improvement. What are required continuously from an architectural perspective, from a technology perspective, from a delivery perspective, has to the improvements that need to go in so that I could provide a continuously consistent performance, because I'm continuously improving the service components of my service delivery chain. Because if you look at it, service reliability and service availability are not the same. Availability is an attribute that basically says, is the service available when a user requested the service? Reliability is where the probability of being able to service that request in a guaranteed time period is what is more important. It is governed by the service levels. What service level? If you look at any of the SaaS providers today, nobody guarantees you a service level. They will only guarantee you availability. They'll tell you your Office 365 is going to be available, and if it is not available, you're the one who needs to prove to them it was not available. But never will any of the SaaS services providers today say that my application will respond back to every request that comes from your organization within X amount of time. None of them provide that reliability guarantee. So, service reliability and guaranteeing service reliability requires that algorithmic relationship-driven solutions. I need to know all the relationships within my entity that is providing the business service and be able to monitor it. Not only should I be able to look at an infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, service as a service, the entire available solution, platform solution that are provided to me today should be targeted for us in terms of being able to provide that reliability. And such a reliability is not just looking at alerts. This is where the intelligence, artificial intelligence comes into picture. You need to take data, alerts, log data, change requests, known errors. What are the configurable items, relationships? What are the logical topologies? What are the physical topologies? Where am I working? And every incident event coming in, that data has to be aggregated, normalized so that I could make correlations out of that. So I can learn patterns and then start predicting. And that predictions have to be grounded or should be around service reliability and service how can I guarantee a service level for my business, service to my end users? That should be the driving force, and that's where the service reliability with requires artificial intelligence and machine learning. And if you look at it in a different manner, the amount of data that's available, structured, unstructured, logs, events, alerts, all of these have to be combined with the discovery that I need to make of the services. What applications are running? What applications have I discovered? What is their topology? How does this application form a business service? Or does the business service, or does one application provide multiple business services? Correlate that event, reduce the noise, identify the root cause of any degradation. But the single truth on which all of this has to be done is service reliability. Service reliability defined by those 4 golden signals I talked to you about: response time, throughput, error rate, contention. Defined by those 4 golden signals, if I can actually use artificial intelligence to provide the service reliability by predicting what might happen with all the events and alerts and metrics ingesting using artificial intelligence, that is the journey that needs to take us towards the service reliability. We at Ziff.ai, the business unit of Gavs Technology, are providing solutions that will allow our customers to crawl, walk, and run, with solutions that will allow them to understand and experience what a AI-driven service reliability will look like by providing them a sandbox and providing 2 different versions of our solutions, Ziff Now and Ziff Enterprise, where you could look at the power of artificial intelligence with service reliability on a smaller scale with our Ziff Now product, and for a larger scale for an enterprise with our Ziff Enterprise product. So these are the solutions that we are providing for our customers for the service reliability. And again, as I said, this is not a sales pitch. This is what we've learned and how we are making our solutions available to our customers. With this, the webinar comes, my slides come to a close, and we'll open up the floor for question and answers. So I think how you should be asking questions have been shared with you earlier on. Would appreciate if you can type in your questions so that I could address them if you have any.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. We have the questions coming in. First
Okay.
question, how much of historical data is needed for the ITOps tool to make intelligent forecasting?
Well, it all depends, right? Again, how much? When did you, for whoever it is, as human beings, when did we stop learning? We didn't stop learning when we turned 25 and said 25 years of experience is good enough for me to keep learning. The learning is an ongoing process. So the historical data, again, is in my opinion, an anomaly. As the stock market will say, performance, historical data is not an indication of what your future performance is. The unsupervised learning mechanisms to learn what is happening from this day on, you are learning accuracy, or your learning process is going to get mature. And typically it will take, and what I've seen will take anywhere from 1 week to 30 days to have the initial learnings in place that could be built upon as we move forward. And this learning is going to improve, and this learning is going to have, it's a continuous journey. It's not like, 30 days, I'm going to learn everything and I'm going to predict everything. No, It is a continuous journey, but it will take at least 30 days, 2 weeks to 30 days to form initial relationships and initial patterns. We can go to the second question, Anand.
Right. So if a service is not reliable, how is it accessible? Just because my cell phone has a signal does not mean the service of connecting is accessible if the service is not reliable, regardless of the available physical channel.
That's precisely the point of the webinar is, right? Availability does not mean reliability. Availability is if you're measuring your business services out of reliability, are they available or not, then yeah, they might be available, but are they reliable? If you open your email at 8 o'clock in the morning when 10,000 employees in your organization are also going to open the email, and then you say, it always takes 10 minutes for it to load, I'm going to go get my coffee. That's not reliable. Every time you click on that service, you're an internal user for your organization, and email is one of the services that your organization is providing to you. And if that service is consistently available, irrespective of the time of the day, when I click it, I'm going to get a response back in 500 milliseconds. That is reliability. That is guaranteed service level. So yeah, what you stated in the question is absolutely right. Availability does not mean reliability, and reliability is not what we are measuring our services against today. And that is precisely what Ziff.ai and Gavs is doing to provide such solutions.
The next question is, Ziff now, as you explained, works along with ITSM tools. So does it analyze the input collected by these tools or any other way of collecting data?
The ITSM tools from which the data is being collected is being collected for establishing the relationships, and also being collected with an assumption that ITSM as a service manager or service management platform is a single source of truth for the IT operations guys in order to manage their services. So when the ITSM platforms, the service management platforms are there, what Ziff now is doing is augmenting those platforms with the machine learning and artificial intelligence so that we actually can provide the feedback back to those ITSM tools about the services that we've discovered and what might be going that needs to be correlated, might be going in terms of events and alerts and changes or known errors that might affect a business service. So we are augmenting in Ziff now the power of what ITSM tools have today. I think we're coming up. We're right on the hour. Anand and Anita, I think we probably should wrap it up. And if we have any questions, we should take them offline. But I'll leave it to you. I want to thank everybody for listening to me and attending this webinar. Really appreciate your participation. And please do participate in the survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Sri, before you leave, there's one more final question.
Sure.
One person has mentioned that there is a case from many customers in petrochemical industry where they give data for maybe 1 or 2 years of data for a particular equipment, and they immediately ask for the time it will take to provide them with the prediction.
Very, very, very good. Because in your question itself, you've given me the answer. Chemical equipment, mechanical equipment with the signals that it gives out are consistent. The software related solutions we are talking about through which we are providing the business services are constantly changing, are constantly dynamically being changed by multiple people across the organization. And that changes are also have to be included in as part of predicting what might happen to that particular business service. So if I had a machine that is operating and I know exactly what that machine has to do, the data it spits out will give me enough to predict what might happen with that data, because input and outputs are constant. which is not the case with the services today, because we are actually going, these services are becoming very dynamic and are changing based on what the market needs are. And therefore, all of the historical data that is given to me, I'm not saying, I'm not discounting it, but doesn't necessarily mean that will be enough intelligence or knowledge in there for me to form my intelligence.
Yeah, so we are well beyond our time. Thank you very much, Sri, for the wonderful session, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. We have the webinar feedback survey on the screen. You can please fill in your feedback and then send it to us. It will be helpful. Many have requested for the presentation slides. Yes, we will be sharing the presentation and the recording of the webinar post this. You'll be soon receiving the link from us. And you can also write to us if you have any queries, any information you need. You can write to us at inquiry@zip.ai.
Thank you, everybody. Sayonara.
Thank you very much for your time.